Section 5. These are the health risks and hazards of EMR exposure. From related reports and published articles, it is evident that there is a strong correlation between distance from cell phone towers and a variety of EMR-related health complaints. People who lived in the vicinity of cell towers or base stations reported health issues such as insomnia, fatigue, headaches, and nausea. Some of these people were even diagnosed with serious health diseases such as leukemia, Alzheimer's, autism, ASD, neuropsychiatric issues, brain tumors, and breast cancer. BioInitiative report has compiled more than 1,800 scientific research articles which report serious impact on human and animal bodies like abnormal gene transcriptions, genotoxicity, DNA damage, chromatin condensation, loss of DNA repair capacity, reduction in free radical scavengers, neurotoxicity, decreased sperm morphology, and impaired development of brain and cranial bone. In this section, we have summarized the adverse health effects of EMR exposure. The International Agency for Research on Cancer, IARC, an independent finance organization, classified radiofrequency RF EMR, otherwise electromagnetic radiation, under Group 2B carcinogen, which means that there is a possibility that RF may be cancerogenic to humans. However, Hardell and Carberg claim that there is clear evidence of cancer from long-term, low-level exposure to pulsating and non-ionizing EMR. Their findings warrant IARC to put RF EMR in Group 1, known carcinogen. Another study by the National Toxicology Program, NTP, conducts studies to evaluate potential health hazards and the risk of cancer from RF radiation. Mice and rats were used as test subjects and were tested on the exposure of RF radiation in the 2G and 3G spectrums. This study reported clear evidence of tumor in the hearts, brains, and adrenal glands of male rats. Although not many biophysical mechanisms have been proposed regarding how RF radiation leads to tumor-causing effects, the thermal exposure limits are set solely based on one observed phenomenon, which is the amount of power absorbed per mass of tissue, or in other words, how much tissue is getting heated. The thermal limits are specified such that RF radiation above the limits start to heat the body and show observable effects like disturbance of blood flow and metabolism. Nonetheless, few studies have reported that even at radiation levels above the accepted limit and legally defined for human exposure, there are signs of tumor-promoting effects. Pregnancy and infertility. A strong correlation between male infertility and EMR from mobile phones has been asserted by several researchers. A case study was conducted on male Wistar albino rats who were exposed for 14 days, 15 minutes a day to high EMR. The radiation had impacted their testicular architecture and enzyme activity. It was shown that EMR from mobile phones induces an oxidative stress in testicular tissues and ultimately results in a decrease of semen quality and lower sperm motility. The severity of oxidative stress depends on usage patterns of mobile phone owner. In 2017 study to evaluate the effect of 4G LTE EMR on sperm formation in male rats, it was concluded that the larger duration of exposure results in decreased spermatogenesis. Incidents have been reported where telecom workers were accidentally exposed to high EMR doses, developed skin burns, and injury to heat-sensitive tissues such as lenses of the eyes and testicles and the brain, leading to cataract, male infertility, and seizures. The carcinogenic nature of EMR, which results in mutation of sperm cells as well as testicular cancer, has also been reported. Thus, the probability that future generations will inherit unhealthy or low immunity genes is also increased. In the case study, which involved exposing pregnant rats to EMR during different stages of pregnancy, uterine congestions, dead and reabsorbed fetuses, hemorrhage, unequal and asymmetrical distribution of fetus implantation sites, malformation, hematoma, short tails, and growth restriction were observed. According to children whose mothers used cell phone during pregnancy had 25% more emotional problems, 35% more hyperactivity, 49% more conduit problems, and 34% more peer problems. Whew! Auditory system damage. When a mobile device is actively connected with a cellular network, all the components of the auditory system, including the skin, external, middle, and inner ear, cochlear nerve, and the temporal lobe surface absorb RF energy, radio frequencies. Moreover, it is known that the outer hair cells in the cochlea are highly sensitive to a wide variety of exogenous and endogenous agents, which include externally applied electric and magnetic fields. EMR is damaging to unprotected or externally exposed biological tissue such as the outer hair cells of the cochlea. People who have overreactive cortical stress network in the brain are more vulnerable to tinnitus. A common disease or effect is tinnitus, which in most cases causes a neurological disorder. A person suffering from tinnitus perceives high-frequency ringing among other sounds which are externally non-existent. Such people generally report poor quality of sleep and several difficulties throughout their daily life. In the worst cases, even suicides have been reported. In light of EMR, it is relevant to note that the number of tinnitus cases reported the last few decades have increased several folds. Studies have shown that evidence that the main cause for such increase can be attributed to widespread and long-term usage of cellular phones, particularly in the cases where one ear is much dominantly used over the other. Another phenomenon to be aware of is RF hearing, which was confirmed to exist as early as the 1960s. Although RF energy is electromagnetic in nature, some of it is converted into acoustic energy both within and outside the cochlea and is perceived as a sound entering at about 5 kilohertz. The exact frequency may vary depending on the dimensions of the subject's head. Deb Hoklar reviewed several long-term case studies, included that long-term intensive use of mobile phone does lead to hearing loss. Prolonged use, 1 year of mobile and cellular technology, may decrease the ability of a person to hear high-frequency sounds. The person is more likely to develop acoustic neuroma, in which non-cancerous tissue develops on a nerve which links the inner ear with the brain. In advanced stages of acoustic neuroma, pressure is exerted on the brain, which may result in dangerous neurological effects, including vertigo, confusion, unsteadiness, facial numbness, and headaches, but casual and frequent usage does not lead to any immediately recognizable adverse effects or any significant damage to auditory system. Part D, effects on childhood development. Statistics show that in recent years, more children have begun using cell phones or smartphones compared to the elder generation. In addition, it is observed that the average age at which children nowadays begin using smartphones is also significantly lesser than before. Therefore, it is expected that this population will absorb significantly more EMR radiation throughout their lifetime. The existing public safety limits for EMR exposure are not acceptably protective of public health, especially the young population, including babies, neonate, fetus, and embryo. EMR exposure to pregnant women have detrimental consequences on the future health of the child. The time a fetus spends in a mother's womb is a critical time of development because the health problems that are once laid down in the cells or in epigenetic changes in the genome have lifelong consequences on the health of the individual. The young population are more vulnerable to EMR exposure because of their smaller body mass and rapid physical development, both of which magnify the impact of EMR on the body. The differences in bone density and the amount of fluid in a child's brain compared to an adult's brain allow children to absorb greater quantities of RF energy deeper into their brains than adults. It is known in the field of medicine that the brain tissue in children shows more electroconductivity when compared with adults. This allows for more EMR penetration in proportion to the dimensions of the head. Effects on the nervous system, which is still in the developmental stages, are also cause of concern. While anatomical development of nervous systems in children is finished, EMR could still hamper the functional development, which generally progresses into adulthood. Blood-related disorders. Part E, exposure to even low-intensity EMR can affect the blood-brain barrier by increasing its permeability. Blood-brain barrier prevents the flow of toxins into sensitive brain tissues, and when its permeable increases due to the exposure from EMR, it is no longer provided the protective barrier. Salford conducted a study and found that just single 2-hour exposure to EMR from cell phones results in an increased leakage of blood-brain barrier, and 50 days of such exposure can lead to neuronal damage. The EMR level, as low as 0.001 watts per kilogram, can affect the blood-brain barrier, and this limit is about 1,000 times lower than the FCC 1.6 watts per kilogram and ICNIRP 2 watts per kilogram limits allowed. Research is required to investigate the damage done by EMR exposure on the barriers like the blood placenta barrier that protects the developing fetus, the blood testes barrier, which protects the developing sperm, the blood ocular barrier that protects the eye, and the blood gut barrier that protects proper digestion and nutrition. Part F, DNA damage. DNA molecules in our body directly interact with EMR. The double helical structure of DNA causes it to act like a fractal antenna. The characteristics of the fractal antenna is that it interacts with a wide range of frequencies. Therefore, the structure of DNA makes it vulnerable to damage from EMR exposure over the entire range of non-ionizing frequencies, i.e. from extremely low frequency range, 300 Hz to 3 kHz, to radio frequency range, 3 Hz to 300 GHz. The interaction of DNA and EMR generates free radicals, produces stress proteins, and causes gene mutations. Human DNA and stem cells are predominantly damaged by EMR exposure as they do not have the ability to adapt to chronic exposures of EMR, and thus DNA repair is not possible. Effects on mental and cognitive health. Many neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, and motor neuron disease are found to be caused and triggered by EMR exposure. EMR damages the neurons of the brain, reduces the neuron reactivity, prolongs their refractory period, and increases the neural membrane conductivity. All such diseases mentioned above involve death of specific neurons and therefore are called neurodegenerative diseases. As mentioned in the introduction of this section, people living in vicinities of cell towers and base stations are prone to develop many neuropsychiatric problems like tremors, numbness, headache, nausea, memory loss, dizziness, altered reflexes, depression, and many other severe brain and cognitive related health problems such as paralysis, stroke, and psychosis. We'll be going into section 6 after this one, everybody, and that's protective measures and ambient EMR minimization, what you can do.